Okay, so we are going to proceed to the next subchapter for chapter 7, which is the training. Previously, we have discussed about the orientation of the office staff. Okay, so let's take a look what is the definition of training. So the training is actually a structured program that provide new and existing employee with directed experiences, enabling them to perform their tasks more efficiently. Okay, so this is what the definition of training. So actually the training is quite broad. It's not just training of a new job. You also have the training also, for example, when you took OBM 1-to-1 typing, you are do the training. Okay, to make sure you perform, you type faster, everything, you need to do the training. Okay, practice the typing again and again. This is one of the example. Okay, so now we are going to focus on the training, especially for the new employees or the existing employees. Why existing employee? Sometimes the organization may use the new system or the new software, or sometimes the organization have a new direction, so they need to provide this type of training, especially for the existing employee. Okay, so the next one. Okay, so what are the advantages of effective office training? Okay, so there are 7. The first one is employee morale is improved. Okay, and then employee turnover is lessened. Why employee turnover is lessened? Because when the employee have the training, they will feel much better to do or to complete their job compared to those who do not have the training. Why? Because when you have a new system and your existing employee is not familiar, so they will make their self the moral is lesser, and also the turnover rate is quite high. Okay, and then the employee errors are reduced. Number 4, employee self-confidence is increased. Next one, yes, this is interrelated. When you give a training, effective training to your new employee or new existing employee, the productivity is increased, and then the employee can adjust with her or his job quicker. And lastly, employee supervision is needed less. Okay, next one. So what are the we are going to proceed to the next part, which is what we call the training methods and technique. So actually there are there are actually 3 training methods and technique that you can choose. But again, before we choose this technique, you need to know what are the factors to be considered when you are going to select appropriate technique, especially the technique for training for your new employees, also for your existing employees. Okay, so the first one is the nature of the tasks or jobs for which training programs are being developed. Okay, number 2 is number of individuals to be trained. How many? Okay, maybe 10%, 5%, maybe 20%. Okay, financial commitment the organization is willing to make for employee training. Yes, I have discussed about this one earlier in chapter 6. While we are going to cost a lot when we have a training and orientation. Okay, so what happened when you have selected and then the employee turn over and go to another organization or have another job? So you need to train again, so it's quite costly. That's why you need to make a very good selection, especially for your new employee. Okay, and then with which already prepared material can be obtained. Okay, next one is length of time needed to train individual adequately. Okay, the training program usually it depends to what type of the nature or job that you're going to train. Maybe it will take about 1 week, a days, a month, it depends. Okay, and then adequacy of the training facilities within the organization. If your organization have an adequate place to do the training, yes, it will cut cost. But if you do not have the what we call the equipment, advocacy facilities, so it will quite costly for your organization. Lastly is ability of individuals for whom the training experiences are being developed. So if you have someone in your organization to do the training, it will cut costs. But again, if you do not have that expertise, you need to hire someone. It will incur some cost to pay our trainer. Okay, next one. Okay, so these are the techniques. Okay, actually categories of training technique, you need to know there are three. The first one is information distribution training techniques. The second one is simulation training techniques, and the last one is on the job training techniques. Okay, so this technique training technique actually depends to the factors that we have discussed earlier. Okay, so we are going to discuss this one by one, but for this video chapter 7 part 2, we are going only to discuss the information distribution training techniques. Okay, so now I'm going to take a look. We have three information distribution training techniques, simulation training techniques, and on-the-job training techniques. So I differentiate these three type of training techniques by color. Okay, so easy for you to do your readings and to memorize. Okay, so in information distribution techniques, you have 7. Okay, lecture method, conference method, program instruction, closed circuit television, which is CCTV, slide presentation, distance learning. So we are doing the distance learning right now, and also the college level refresher course. Okay, so there are 7 in information distribution training technique. So in simulation training technique, you have 10. The role playing, case method, incident method, business games in basket, computer assisted instruction, audio cassette training, video training, interactive video instruction, virtual reality, distance learning, and also college level refresher course. Okay, so you have this one in what we call simulation training technique. And lastly, I do realize that you only have until virtual reality. Distance learning college level is the information distribution technique. Okay, so yes, there's an error here. I'm going to do the correction after this in your notes. Okay, okay, so next one, on the job training techniques, you have 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Education, employer, cooperative training, on the job coaching, job rotation, job instruction training, and lastly just-in-time training. Okay, so next we will discuss about the first category of training technique, which is the information distribution training technique. So for this technique, you need to know what are the definition for each of these training technique. Okay, so the first one, information distribution training techniques. Okay, so this one is a category of training techniques in which material is presented to trainees without their needing practice. Okay, so you have 7 again. Okay, this one we have talked about this one, so we are going to go for this one by one. Okay, the first one, the lecture method. So the lecture method, okay, actually I'm doing the lecture method right now. Okay, so you allow the presentation of a large amount of information to a number of people in short time. So for this one, the lecture method does not allow for individual differences. You will be what we call treat equally. Okay, so what are the advantages of lecture method? So this one is the most economical training techniques. Okay, this is number 1. Number 2, the advantages is a large amount of information can be presented in a short time. Okay, so what happened right now, I managed to present my chapter 7 for the what we call 6 class for this semester. Okay, and then the trainees can be exposed to outstanding practitioners or experts. Okay, this is number 1. Okay, the lecture method. Let's proceed to number 2. So for number 2 is the conference method. Okay, so for this one, you train employees in a small groups headed by the conference leader. So the trainee plays an active roles because of the frequent verbal interaction with other conference participants. So conference maybe a group, for example, you have 7 branches, so you have a conference method. So small group from Terengganu, small group from Pahang, and small group from Kelantan, for example. Okay, so the leader's function is to provide guidance and feedback rather than instruction. So this is what we call two-way communication. So they're useful for helping office employee to develop problem solving and decision making skill. Okay, you are familiar with the problem solving and also decision making. You have learned this one in chapter 4. Okay, and then use the acquaint employees with new materials to modify employees' attitude and also to help employee overcome resistance to change. However, there are 3 disadvantages of the conference method. The first one is consume a considerable amount of time before substantive result area apparent. Okay, compared to the lecture method, there are 3 advantages, but this one for conference you have 3 disadvantages. So it frequently result in considerable confusion and sidetracking of the important issues. Okay, why? Because you have small group and maybe from many branches, okay, and then restricted to small group. Okay, so usually you have learned about small group maybe between 10, okay, 5 to 7 or 5 to 9 or 10, less than 10. Okay, so you have learned about small group before in chapter 4. Okay, so let's go. This is number 2. Let's go for number 3. Number 3 is the program instruction. So this one is present material to the learner in 2 formats. Again, you have 2 formats, either the textbook or the teaching machine format on the computer. So the trainees answer questions by making a response. This one is based on the textbook format and also by pushing a button, teaching machine format. Okay, so you have to type program instruction. If the trainee's response is correct, then he or she is instructed to proceed to the next unit of information. Okay, in other words, you are using a program, so the instruction is on your textbook or in the program itself. Okay, so if you do it correctly, so maybe the program will answer you do the correct thing, and then you can proceed to the next step. Okay, so there are 3 advantages of the program instruction. The first one is training obtain immediate knowledge of result. Yes, because you are doing on the same time, you're referring either the textbook or the teaching machine format, so you will get the result on the spot. Okay, so the progresses through the instructional unit at an individual pace. Yes, it depends on individual. For example, you have 5 person at the same time using the program instruction. Okay, so some of your friend is much what we call the fast learner, so he will proceed to the next step more compared to you, for example. Okay, and then take an active role in the learning process. Okay, this is number 3. Next one, number 4 is the closed circuit television. Okay, or in other words, we call this as CCTV. Okay, so enable an organization to develop its own videotapes of various procedures, processes or methods. So the trainee view the videotape as often as needed to master the subject matter. Okay, so this one is useful for initial learning as well as a refresher course. So what are the advantages? There are 2 advantages of closed circuit television. The first one is individual with excellent presentation skills can be used as presenters. Number 2, close-up procedures or processes can be presented on CCTV, which not always possible with the lecture method. Okay, so now we are going to proceed number 5. Number 5 is the motion pictures and slide presentation. So you are using the motion pictures, something moving, and slide presentation in the training process. So the slide presentation can be either integrated into large and small group instruction, or they can be used of an individual basis. Okay, So this is more to the motion pictures and slide presentation. It's a just slide presentation. Okay. Yes, it not mention what are the advantages and disadvantages. Okay. Next one, distance learning. Okay. So distance learning is a new training technique where the trainer and trainees may be separated from one another by distance. Okay, so you are now is learning through the distance learning. Okay, so delivers the instructional process to the trainee side rather than requiring the trainee to go to the site where the training originates. For example, you are asking your new employee to complete certain job, and then you are giving instruction or giving the training through distance learning. Okay, you are not supposed to be there, but you can train your new employee through the distance learning. Okay, so the trainees can see the trainer when he or she is talking, and the trainer can see the trainees when they ask question. Okay, in other words, it's still what we call face-to-face communication, but if both parties communicate. So what happened right now instead of distance learning, yes, it's very pretty hard to get the two-way communication. Okay, so last one, number 7 is the college level refresher courses. Okay, so this training method in which the trainee is enrolled in a college course to gain the job related knowledge he or she needs, and then involve using college university courses to train employee. Okay, for example, some of my friends and some of my ex-students, they are asking me the notes for what we call train cars. Okay, what we call OBM 200 executive note taking. Why? Because they want to use that one during their job. Okay, this is what we call college level refresher course. Okay, the same thing goes when you are working. Maybe your boss asking you, especially when you are taking the job of AOM, you need to refresh back what you have learned in AOM, especially in the part of human resource. Okay, so that's it for video chapter 7 part 2. We meet again in the last chapter 7 part 3. Okay, see you again.